Welcome to Selling in the Age of AI.
Yeah, this is good stuff. So,
Must-listen podcast for sales professionals who lean into technology without leaning on it. Dive into the future of sales with your host, the dynamic and inspiring Frank Somma, renowned keynote speaker, best-selling author, seminar leader, and business coach. Get ready for game-changing insights and strategies that value technology but place humanity at the top of the sales pyramid.
Benvenuti a tutti. Welcome to Selling in the Age of AI, the podcast where we respect the tech but place human-to-human contact squarely at the top of the sales pyramid. I'm Frank Somma, and I am pumped to welcome today's guest. He was among the first people I reached out to when I began this podcast, and our schedules finally aligned, and I am fortunate to welcome here today. Craig Witt is a powerhouse in the real estate world. With over 20 years of leadership at Exit Realty, Craig started as a broker owner, became a regional owner overseeing multiple states, rose to president, and now serves as CEO, leading tens of thousands of agents and broker owners across North America. He is known for his no-fluff, straight-talking leadership style, driven by deep experience, fierce loyalty to his people, and an unwavering commitment to building a culture of compassion, connection, and success. Welcome, Craig Witt. So glad to have you here.
It's so great to be here, Frank. Thank you. And I am too glad that it finally lined up. And I don't know what took so long. I guarantee it was my fault. I'll take ownership for that. It's taken some time to squeeze into the schedule, but I'm proud to be here and thank you for the invitation.
I tell you right off the bat, everybody, take a lesson in leadership, right? What did Craig just do? He took complete ownership of it. This is what leaders do, right? Leaders eat last, right? You know this stuff.
Yeah, humility.
So, Craig, we began this podcast to kind of assuage the fears of salespeople that were afraid that they'd get replaced by AI.
Mm-hmm.
So is that fear amongst real estate sales professionals? Do you hear any kind of talk about that? Is there any worry about AI?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree it is. I mean, the people that are in the know and they're plugged into what's going on realize that's not a realistic, thought process. But the ones that aren't, that are a little more concerned about it, think that it's, we both know real estate is person to person, it's human to human. I mean, it's belly to belly. That's the way it's always been. It's the way it'll always be. There's just too much human interaction in a real estate transaction. If it were investment properties, commercial, industrial, or leasing or something, it's not emotional at all. But when you're talking about a place where people are going to raise their babies and they're looking for neighborhoods and schools and all those things, it's very personal. We can gather all the data, provide that to everybody through AI, certainly, but it still takes a human connection, and I think that'll remain for certainly while I'm still around.
Yeah, I agree with you. I believe that there are nuances to especially what's done in certain industries like real estate that can only happen with people. And, one of the things that we talk about on the podcast is cautioning salespeople who want to use tech, and we love the tech, but we don't want it to ever replace the human-to-human interaction. When you see someone face-to-face, there are things happening in your limbic system that are as old as time that are connecting people. When you think about the greatest salespeople you've known in real estate, can you tell me a little bit about the qualities maybe that they've shared?
Well, I think, let's start with this. And I've been saying this a lot lately. I believe I like to write. So I write my own articles. I write my own Monday morning. I do a thing called a Whit Bit that goes out to our entire company. And it's just a short little piece that gives them either inspiration or education or something that's a personal experience of mine that maybe they can relate to build some rapport. But I've been saying recently that authenticity is lost when you are not the author. So I could easily use AI to draft whatever I want and have that print it and take a lot of time out of it, of my article or my Whitbit. But then it's not me, and there's no authenticity. And I think that there's a fine line in sales between being authentic and being a salesy salesperson. And I've always gone down the road of being authentic, people by people, as I said a minute ago. This is what you get when you hire Craig. You hire me. And that's better than any AI you're going to get. They can certainly, think of it this way too. The consumer has become so wise, so smart, so technologically advanced, so savvy that they're oftentimes coming to us now and all of our agents and brokers in every brand with maybe more information than that real estate agent even has. So it's our job to disseminate between that, what they found, what they're presenting us, and make sure we get the keys to the house and get them in the door and let them see what's going on, and then help them close that transaction and do the negotiating, which is a very humanistic event as well. But I think again, it goes back to fear. And are you embracing it or are you fearful of it? You can't be fearful of AI. You've got to be accepting that it's here. It's here to stay. It's moving at the speed of light, and it's going to replace a lot of industry probably. But we are in a human industry.
Where I think it's going to happen, at least initially, from everyone that I've spoken to, is if you are not very good at what you do, for example, and you're competing at the bottom of the barrel on price alone, you'll probably get replaced,
Yeah.
right? It's the folks that are, so, when I'm thinking about real estate people, where does AI fit in then? How can people use this technology to help them and lean into it without leaning on it and being let down?
It's a great question, and there's two sides to that. One is the real estate agent, and one is the consumer perspective, right? And there's a saying right now in our business that AI is not going to replace the real estate agent, but it will replace those that don't embrace it.
Okay.
Okay, so you have to have some level of competency in the understanding of what AI not just is, but how you leverage that to do your job more efficiently, more productively, more successfully. Um, so that takes people dipping their toe in it and starting to play around with it. And obviously, there's several different engines that can do that, and ChatGPT is one of them where you can get on and just start playing with it. But the fear that I have is it's not a fear; it's just a concern that I have is that agents are going to use this um, to speed up the process, and they're going to get sloppy. I don't want them to get sloppy. I, Part of what consumers come to realtors for is because we're trusted advisors, because we're helping advise them on maybe the most expensive investment that they've ever made in their life, and they're counting on us to be knowledgeable. So using AI to gather data, collect intel, present that in a report in such a way that our consumer can disseminate upon it and see what it is that's going to serve what they're looking for, whether it be where they're moving to, the neighborhood, the price structure, the schools, faith-based background, whatever that is, can all be done through AI. But again, it takes somebody really knowledgeable. Real estate's always going to be hyper local. It's always going to be something that you can certainly shop from abroad, but when it comes right down into neighborhood knowledge, it's going to be really important. But again, I just don't want agents to lean on this. If you think about the personality type of a typical real estate agent, not every real estate agent, but a lot of them are strong drivers, right? They're that DI personality. If you follow the DISC program,
Yeah, sure.
they want to get things done. They're not great at the details. They're not happy being behind a computer doing contracts and all those things because it's something that's mundane. So AI could certainly serve that purpose. That could help pull those transactions together. But it's still going to take some oversight. We need to make sure that agents don't just rely on it completely. It has to be edited, altered, and then used in their voice.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense, and it's great to get a start. I've even had where there's groups of salespeople that I coach, and I can go into Chat GPT and say, "Hey, I'm having my third meeting. It's 6 people. This is the level of the game they're at. This is what we've done so far. This is what I want to uncover in this meeting. Can you give me a 30-minute agenda?" And it wraps out an agenda, and I look at it, I go, "Well, that's not going to work, but maybe," and I'll even ask for a story or a quote to kick it off. And then you can look at that stuff and massage it and make it your own. But how much legwork did it save me where I used to have to do that from the ground up? At least now you get a framework. And I think
Yeah.
real estate people could certainly do that with, just asking about the criteria that a buyer has and then throwing that into AI and see what gets spit out in terms of the neighborhood and some proof sources. Yeah.
Yeah, AI will be the death of writer's block, right?
Yeah.
Right, the death of writer's block, because we've all been there where we're trying to follow a theme and write something and make it authentic and on point, and we're like, I just can't. So you do exactly what you say. We go to ChatGPT, we type in all the criteria that we think we're looking for. It
Right.
spits out something that's completely basic and systematic and scripted, and you're like, oh, this doesn't sound like me at all. But that's a really good piece. I can build on that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's got its use in that area where it'll help inspire thought so that you can then craft a message around that thought.
Yeah, 100%. I'm thinking about even like research stuff that, it does a little bit better than Google does today,
Mhm.
but I think the important thing to remember is that people do business with people they like, and especially in something, as you were saying, as large and as personal as your home. It's a super emotional moment, right? To
Yeah.
buy a home or to sell a home. It's very emotional on either end of the spectrum. And I remember I did the keynote at an insurance convention, independent insurance agents, and I met a guy there, and we were talking about insurance, and of course, it's the same conversation, right? How personal, so on and so forth. And these are the independent agents. So versus, the big internet, Geico's and whatnot. And he said to me something that resonated. He looked at me and he said, "But Frank, who are they going to call on their worst day?
Mhm.
I want them to call me."
Yeah.
And his go to market is that feeling. And I think that applies in real estate, right? Who are you going to rely on to take care of these transactions? Is it some of these discounted services that, cut corners? Is it, point and click and I'll do my own work? Or do you want to go to Craig Witt? We read your bio. Gee whiz. I mean, you want somebody with that kind of experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think something that we're not talking about a lot, and I want to shed some light on it today, Frank, is, we live in a very litigious world right now.
Right.
And the other concern that I have, certainly for our brand, is that the reliance too much on AI may not follow local board association or national real estate law. And if it replaces language, whether it be in a contract or a listing agreement or whatever it is, that the right individual that has a bad experience could come back on our brand or the industry overall. We could find ourselves in a lawsuit again that become very costly, and it's a distraction for the growth and the success of our company. So these are all things to remember. And again, I think that there's definitely look, there's no doubt there's a place for it. I'll tell you, I was golfing with a friend of mine earlier this year at a real estate event, and he had did a study. I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, perhaps you haven't, but NAR, National Association of Realtors, has this sheet that says there's 178 things that a real estate agent does to close a transaction. From the
Okay.
minute that they can think about getting a listing to the minute they close the deal and cash the check. There's 178 things. I may be off by a number or two. But all those things is what it takes. So we always used to coach our agents and our brokers, and we'd hand that list to the customer and say, all you think we do is put it on the MLS and we wait for a buyer to show up, right?
Right.
When in reality, these are all the things that we really do. And it was really kind of validating our fee structure and how we got paid. But the point is he said, I'm going to take that list and see how many of those things can be replaced by AI.
Right.
And he got all the way down to 32 things left. So it handled the mass majority of all the things, but there were 32 individual items that still required human interaction, that it took a human being to close that transaction, right? So that's just more case in point to, I don't see it happening in the near future. Not heavy reliance on it, but certainly as a support mechanism.
So when you think about the people that are successful, and we know a couple people in common, right? We mentioned folks that are within
Yep.
your organization, my good friend Bob Shavanian,
Yeah.
Jareen, who's in that office, and so many others. And what do you think separates those folks? Like, why is Jareen, for example, a super salesperson hitting numbers out of the park, and Frank comes on board and puts in just as many hours? And even after a couple of years, maybe I don't have the success. Like, what separates the great from the also ran?
Well, it's several things, and I talk a lot about this. It has a lot to do with leadership, has a lot to do with commitment, has a lot to do with how you're wired. Not everyone is built to be a salesperson and go out and prospect for business. In fact, the mass majority of human beings are probably more wired to be more passive in nature and have customers come to them. Where you look at it as a cashier, somebody that's working in a business where they'd actually pick up the phone and solicit your business. But when it comes to our business, it's really difficult to rewire or train somebody to say, okay, you're going from a 9 to 5 job where you're getting a paycheck every Friday to waking up unemployed every day, and you've got to go hunt every single day and figure this out.
Right.
So that's number one. Is it's a mindset. It's a mindset that, yes, I'm wired to do this. And identifying the people early. Look, we've never hired an agent and said, gosh, Frank, I sure hope you fail, right? We hire them believing in the human being,
Sure.
thinking, if you do these things, you'll have this level of success, right? And it's not that we're not providing that information, whether it's my brand or any other brand. We're giving you everything that you need to succeed, but you may not just be showing up, or this isn't for you. So it has a lot to do, as I said, with leadership. When you look at the franchise owners and the brokers, or even independent owners,
Yeah.
these are typically salespeople that went out on their own, started their own company, and now they find themselves, who used to be great salespeople, having to attract agents into their office through recruiting, which is something they're not comfortable doing, right? They're trying to bring people in, they're trying to train them, teach them, coach them, get them to do all these things, get them to show up to meetings, get them to go out and prospect, and then they're trying to get them productive. And meanwhile, the agents are struggling in some cases, and they're not making the money that they thought that they would make, because everybody gets into real estate to make $1 million a year.
Sure.
It just doesn't happen that way, and it's not the system. Systems don't fail. People fail the system, whether it's mine or anybody else's.
Yeah.
So number one, you've got to have a strong broker owner in your office that holds agents accountable, paints the real picture of what real estate and sales is all about, and then discerns whether or not they're capable of doing it in short order. If you can't do this in 45 to 90 days, I'm going to save you time and money and help you find another job. And then it takes agents that invest in themselves. They take this business, take it on like they're the CEO of their own company. They're an independent contractor, but they take ownership of it. There's no plan B. This is plan A, and I'm going to make this work. You tell me what I got to do, and that's what I'm going to do. And they've got multiple food chains of business coming in. They're not just focused on buyers. They're not just focused on sellers. They're building referral-based business so that customers continually come back to them. And I think if you do those things and you get in the right environment and the right culture, and by the way, in our business, so many people have migrated, Frank, to working from their couch, working from their dining table. I get it. Some people are wired to do that. The mass majority of people are pack animals. They can't work from home. It's too difficult. My opinion, you got to get up, you got to dress up, you got to show up, you got to go be with other people, encourage each other, hug each other, and then talk business and learn together. And if we could get back out of this COVID fog, which is still lingering, and get people back into offices where they're actually productive together, you're going to see a lot more success. But it gets really lonely in our business. Sales on its own is a very lonely business, as you know, especially if you're on the road doing it.
Yeah, it really is. And some of the building blocks that I've tried to work with people in your business and others is, especially, there's some basic things, right? So you want to take every advantage you can. And like you were saying, here's the playbook. We know if you put all these things in, good things will come out. So people, there's two things that happen there, right? One is they skip steps. They don't do everything that they were told to do in training. And the other thing is that they do all the things, but they don't do them adroitly. So a basic thing like going to a networking event or going to any event and trying to meet people, do they know how to meet people? Right? We can tell them, hey, get out in the world. That's where you get your referrals. Go to these local events, whatever, whether it's a Kiwanis event or the county fair, whatever. Get out and meet folks. But it's important that they know how to meet people, right? How do you work that communication? And to your point, the longer we're working at our kitchen tables and sitting home, the more rusty that skill becomes, right?
Yeah, it does. And look, real estate sales is structure. The way to be successful in sales is to have structure, a good system, good onboarding, good education, being coachable. All these things lead you down that path of success. At our company, at Exit Realty, I mean, we're going on almost 3 decades here of having a successful franchise brand. We've been there, done that. We've seen it. We've seen what works and we've seen what doesn't work. And if you want to know what works, follow all my top brokers and how they run their office and the Bobs of the world. And this is how you do it, right? Top agents, same thing. Everyone's looking for the smoking gun or the silver bullet. And I always say, look in the mirror. That's your smoking gun. All you got to do is get up and get out of bed in the morning, dress up and go to work and go see people, and deals are going to happen because this is a social business. And I'm making it sound a little easier than it really is, because it is tough sometimes when you have a lot of factors that get in the way of our business, whether it's through mortgage or title or inspections or appraisals or all these things that always get in the way of the paycheck. But ultimately, if it is to be, it's up to me.
Yeah,
I believe that.
That's 100% true, right? It's a self-reliant business. You said it earlier, Craig, you said, you wake up, look in the mirror, you are the CEO of your own business. As a salesperson, especially as a commissioned salesperson. I mean, it is that kind of a load, and you want to feel that works for you. And, I was on a meeting the other day coaching some salespeople, and I mentioned a guy that's a friend of mine, John, And John came to work for me many years ago and did not have the sales gene. Like I had a manager who begged me to hire him, and I allowed the manager to hire him against every bit of advice I can give. This guy does not have the sales gene. No, the personality of a chair. And the guy went on to be top 10 in an 80-person sales force. The difference was that John started at 7 a.m. and finished at 7 p.m. while everybody else was working 9 to 4. He just outworked and out hustled everybody. Even though he wasn't as good, enough people were like, okay, I'll take it eventually. And then as he did that, he gained the skills. So eventually the work ethic and the skills combined to make him a real achiever. But in the beginning, if you haven't got the skills, you can just do the work while you're trying to learn the skills, right?
I think you can, and I think it's who you surround yourself with. You know, you surround yourself with good people. You have a little humility. You say, I don't know everything. I'm going to watch and observe, and I'm going to see what they do. This is either moving me closer to my goal or it's moving me further away from my goal. So I want to go closer to my goal. The first thing you need to know is what's your goal, right?
Yeah,
What do I want? Just to say, I want to make $1 million a year in any sales business is a crazy goal. It's audacious because you're not giving it any parameters. You're not saying, what am I going to do to achieve this? It's not about the gross, it's about the net, and it's also about lifestyle. And with money, you're looking for freedom, you're looking for choice, you're looking for lifestyle, you're looking at other things. Maybe not when we're younger, but as we get a little bit older, that's what we're looking for. And the money will come if you do all the right things and if you hang around the right people. And I always say, take a good look at your circle of friends, because that's, I have a lot of successful friends that I hang around, not because of what they have or what they do. It's because we're attracted to each other because we have similar mindsets. We'll get up and go to work and we want to achieve and we want to see people do better. It's not about you, it's about what can other people do and how do I get the most and the best out of other people. And when you come at it from that mindset, all of a sudden things just start happening and you're like, well, I don't even know how this happened. I don't either. How did I become the CEO of the US side for Exit Realty? I have no idea. It just happened one day. I didn't raise my hand and say, boy, would that be fun. Here I am. And now, great responsibility and great authority and great pleasure and great pride come along with that. And you look back and go, man, I've done some really good things, but I'm not done yet. I got a lot to do. So now it's time for me to take what I've learned and pass that down to as many people as I can. Be reputable, have a great reputation, lead by example, and do the things that other people won't do.
Yeah, super important. My first sales manager ever, 40 years ago, Leo Leapson in the copier business. We got to a place where we were going to do a demo. We all had to buy a van, like a minivan, because they had on like gurneys, like a medical gurney. You had a copy
Yeah.
in the back. You had to take it out and wheel it into the customer to do a demo. And what I'll never forget is that the first time I went out on a demonstration, I went to the back of the van and he beat me there and took the machine out. And that from that moment on, that guy just had my respect because he was in charge of a bunch of people. I was a rookie. Like it should have been on me to do the heavy lift, literally heavy lifting.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was that kind of a leader that he led by example. He worked really hard, and you're right. That's what it takes, and especially in your position, because when you go to talk to people, Craig, it's hard to remember that they're filtering by this is Craig the CEO. You feel like you talk to them, you're Craig.
Yeah,
You're
I'm a
being
regular
authentic,
guy.
you're trying to help them out, but they have that filter that of the title, and you have to break through that, yeah.
Well, I think, in our lifetime, Frank, for sure, we've ran across so many leaders that were not leaders at all. And you're sitting here going, how did this person even get this position, right? Nothing against them personally, but from a business perspective, would I follow this person? Would I work for this person? And I've ran across so many leaders and CEOs in this business, certainly C-suite executives that are just climbing this ladder to nowhere, going, oh, I need more money. I need more money. I need a better house, a nicer car, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And the end result is usually the same,
Yeah.
right? And every once in a while, you get into a room where you've got like-minded individuals, and you go, "Okay, I can grow here. I'm not the smartest person in the room, and this is where I need to be because there's a lot to learn here." And I think if you compare that to what the topic of today is, and that is about AI, it's about what are the people that I respect? What are they doing? How are they engaging with this new technology, this newer technology that is transforming not just our business, but a lot of other businesses? And how are they adapting to it? And what is the messaging that they're giving to their people to make their people feel more comfortable on how to accept this? And I think that's what's most important. A good leader will always make sure and do the education. They'll make sure that they'll lead by example, but they're informative and they're making sure that there may be white noise going on out there, but there's a clear path to transparency to make sure everyone feels like they understand it.
You know, Craig, you said something earlier that really resonated with me about surrounding yourself with people that want to achieve.
Mhm.
A friend of mine is a college professor, and he said, you know, give me the GPA of the three people you hang around with, average those, and that's your GPA.
Mhm.
So it's a super important. I mean, go back to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, right? Mastermind groups, and I think people really need to seek that out. If you're a person in, let's say you're just starting out in real estate, you come to a great company like Exit, you've got
Mhm.
a plan. I mean, you guys have it down. You have your training down, you have your plan down, they know what advertising they have to do, they know where the resources are. Everything is provided, right? There's no, I mean, you're working hard, but you don't have to invent it. Someone
The
can lay it
system.
out for you.
Yeah.
But you've got to find, like, I would advise those folks to listen to what you're saying. And who are the two most successful people in this office or whatever? Can I meet them for coffee or what? You know, you want to get around people that are getting it done on a regular basis, right?
Yeah. You do, and and not just in work, but in play too. And I typically find, and again, I've said it before, and I said it today. It's who you're hanging around with. I've got some really close friends that have been very, very successful, and I still drive by their companies some days, and their trucks in the parking lot the first thing in the morning, and they're there at night, or it's on a Saturday when they got home from a work trip, and they're there and catching up on a few things. There's a commitment and a loyalty and a dedication that comes along with this. And I think that when you become an independent contractor, whether it's in sales for any industry or it's in real estate, stop thinking of yourself as just a salesperson. Think of you about how you impact other people. What is it that you're either selling or servicing that's going to move the needle of someone else's life? And
Hmm.
are you proud of what you're doing? And if you answer that question, say, I'm really not proud of what I'm doing, like I don't care for this, then you probably need to find another career because you're
Right.
not, it shows in who you are. People can read your body language to see if you're really into this and you're authentic or if you're not.
That's super true. I think the other part of that that always resonates with me about that authenticity and being who you are is taking the responsibility. So if I were talking to a group of realtors, I would ask them, hey, has anybody ever heard of a realtor that didn't do a deal properly and the buyer or seller suffered for it? And of course, every hand would go up.
Hmm.
You know, so and I bring that point to say to folks that are in the audience, I'll say, well, don't you owe it to if do you do it right? Well, yeah, of course I do. With integrity, yes, I do. Then don't you owe it to every single person you meet everywhere in the world to save them from having a bad experience with a lesser mortal?
Yeah.
So I want them to feel that when you wake up and you look in the mirror in the morning, you go, I'm going to do it right. And there's a millions of people out there that are going to connect with somebody who will not do it as well as me. And you
Yeah.
want to feel that going in, that you are the best resource for that person. You're going to work your tail off to make sure that that person has an awesome experience.
You're exactly right because they hire the individual and they fire the company. And that's always been the case. You go have a bad meal at the restaurant, it's the restaurant's fault. No, the cook was just off that night or the server was off that night. So you don't just give up, right? But I say a lot. I speak, as you know, I speak a lot. I love public speaking. I love getting up in front of groups and trying to share something of value to somebody in the audience, right?
Right?
And I always say character is who you are when nobody's looking.
Yes.
Character is who you are when nobody's looking. How you conduct yourself when you're alone is a direct result as to how you conduct yourself with other people. You can get there fast or you can get there slow, but you're going to get there either way. Why not bring along people with you that are like-minded, help improve everybody along the way rather than going alone?
Absolutely. Craig, if you can think back early on in your career,
Mm.
what's some great advice that you got early on that really worked for you that you can pass along?
Wow. I just hate using that term blessed. I think it gets overused these days, but I have been so fortunate to have grown up around so many strong leaders and strong men in my life. And my father too, being a police officer, seeing kind of how he conducted himself as well. And
Mhm.
um, I think it goes back to nobody's going to do this for you. If it is to be, it's up to me, right? You have to be accountable to yourself, not just accountable to other people, but you have to be accountable to yourself, and you have to be proud of who you are. You have to be able to look in the mirror and say, I love you. And today I'm going to go out and make this a great day, right? It's not bad to have a little faith in your life. And it's not bad to, to surround yourself, as I said, with some good people to do as well. There's generations coming up behind us, and they're watching us very closely. And how we conduct ourselves is what they believe is appropriate and reasonable. And you hang around with dogs, you get fleas. That's just the way that it is. So if you're struggling in life, it's time for a change. It's time to look in the mirror and accept the fact that you've made some mistakes. And I love me for who I am, and I'm going to make a change. Whether it's an addiction or an affliction or whatever it is in your life, there's always time for restarting. You can always reset. Um, I've got I've got this wonderful saying on my wall. Steve Morris, the founder of our company, has these Morris codes that he always puts out, and I got this many, many years ago. And I'm going to read it to you because I think it's relevant to your question. It says, I've got it on my desk right here. It says, there comes a point in your life when you realize who matters, who never did, who won't anymore, and who always will. So don't worry about people from your past. There's a reason why they didn't make it to your future.
Whoa.
I've had that hanging for a very long time, and I've shared that a lot. And I think that that is the epitome of when is it time to let go
Yeah.
and to continue starting anew and weeding the garden and making sure that you're hanging around with the right people.
Yeah. Wow. That's super powerful. I love that. And
Yeah,
I'm telling my production team right now, make sure you get that clip for us. Boy,
yeah,
that's fantastic.
it's a good one. It's a good one.
It is, and it's so true because where you spend your time and who you spend your time with. I know we've come back to this a couple of times, but I'm
Mhm.
a big believer in that kind of mastermind thing. There are great people that I meet with on a regular basis, and we talk about each other's businesses. And you learn so much and get so much advice. When I was writing the book that you see on the wall behind me, sales book, B2B is really P2P, about being personal and selling, I reached out to dozens of people to interview for the book, and four made it in. And one of those was a guy who's Forbes top 400 wealth advisors in the nation.
Mm.
And I asked him, what does it take to be successful in selling? And he said, find the best people in the business, invite them out for a coffee, pick their brain, and network like your life depends on it.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. Boy, I that was fantastic. So,
Yeah,
final thing I want to ask you about, you
yeah.
talked a little bit about having some faith in your life is good. What the company, yourself personally, talk about some charities that you all are involved in, or anything that you're passionate about that we can learn about through you.
Yeah, one of the things that Steve did when he founded this company is part of our transaction fees get allocated in different areas. And one of those areas has always been a charitable program because we wanted to give back to the communities that we work in and we serve. And for many years, we were very closely connected to Habitat for Humanity.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And Habitat for Humanity, we've built countless homes coast to coast around the country, provided cash to build those homes. In many cases, we would go out personally, physically. I've built multiple homes with Rosalind and Jimmy Carter across the country, with Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood right next to him swinging a hammer. So not just a cool experience to be next to them, but a cool experience being able to put a roof over the head of people that really are deserving individuals. So we've been very passionate about that. It ties in really well to what we do as a real estate company, providing the opportunity for housing. And what we've done most recently over the last number of years is we've opened that up and called it the Spirit of Exit program, where everybody in their own community can apply for matching funds, and we will match the amount that they will raise up to a certain limit. And if they've got a charity of choice that they want in their community, we will allocate monies towards that and match that. So not only now are we just helping at the habitat level, doing a house here and a house here and a house there, but coast to coast charitable contributions to these markets all around the country. Raised just surpassed the $8 million mark for contributing in some of these small communities, everywhere from rural Iowa to Manhattan, doesn't matter. And it has had an unbelievable impact on not just our agents, but the communities that they serve. And some of these charities are really, I never realized how many charities there were out there, but there's a lot. They got to qualify as a 501c3, which many do. But these are very personal, whether they've gone through cancer struggles or whatever it is. You name the affliction or the problem, and they've had it, and they've got some connection to it. Tornado relief, hurricane relief across the country, wildfire relief that's gone on in California, Hawaii a couple of years ago.
Sure.
Our ability to reach out and have that money set aside to be able to pour back into these communities is something that I want all of our agents to know that they should be sharing with their customers, because this money
Yes.
comes right back into their community.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, I hope that that story is out there. I mean,
Yeah,
I talk to salespeople individually. I always say, Superman could have broke through bank walls and lined his pockets with millions of dollars, but he used his power for good. If
yeah.
you've got this ability as a salesperson, get with a charity of some
Do it.
kind and use your skills of persuasion to make the world a better place. And I mean, your company's leading the way. If this is what Exit is doing and earmarking these funds and offering local communities for things that they're passionate about in their locale, matching funds, and my hat's off to you guys. That's absolutely outstanding.
And I think it's worthy to note too. I mentioned that it comes out of the transaction fee that the agent pays. So out of their side of their commission, whatever their commission split is, we then take that transaction fee out of that small amount, very small amount, and then we split that fee up, which would typically be a royalty coming to the corporation. So we would collect all of that.
Sure.
We don't do it that way. We split this up and we allocate it in different areas, whether it's through advertising or the Spirit of Exit program. It's so the amount that comes into our company, we're very lean, we're very responsibly ran. We run fiddle string tight here at this company, so we've got to be really smart about how we spend our money. But the idea has always been, how do we bring in a little to cash flow the company and sustain, continue to reinvent and grow, but also pour money back in at the agent and the broker level and the community level, so that everyone wins: the agent, the broker, the community, right, and the company.
Well, Craig, I mean, I would end right here because there's nothing more important to me than seeing a company like yours so dedicated to charitable giving. And again, I mean, you can
Love
see
it.
the poster behind me. That's
Yeah, love it.
Cooley's Anemia Foundation. I've been on the board for 40 years, and we just do these kinds of things, I find it super important to give
Yeah,
that message. So in this podcast, we talk about AI. We talk about you're not going to get replaced if you have the human to human element in your delivery and your everyday work ethic. And one component of that is, of course, charitable participation and giving.
yeah.
So I think that's a great place to end. Is there any final words you want to give us before we say farewell?
No, just keep up the good fight. It's tough out there. Watch less news and spend more time with friends and family.
That is great advice, my friend. Well, Craig Witt, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
You're welcome, Frank. Thank you so much, and really appreciate you too.
Ready to take your sales team or event to the next level? Visit franksomma.com to discover how Frank can coach your top performers, deliver a tailored workshop for your team, or captivate your audience with a content-packed keynote at your next event. Frank's best-selling book, B2B is really P2P, is now available on Amazon and Frank's website. Here's a special offer. As a valued listener, mention this podcast when you contact Frank and receive a 10% discount on your first coaching session, keynote, or workshop booking.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Selling in the Age of AI. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all of the topics we discussed, and of course, to connect with our amazing guests. I have to shout out big love to my production team, Neeks, Angelo, Nico of Digital Presence. You guys rock. If you want your digital presence to explode, check these guys out at digitalpresence.team. And until next time, remember, people can't point and click you. Be the difference maker for your prospects and clients.